Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. So, the Trump administration is not backing down. The Department of Education is not backing down and have sent a notice to SJSU. This is despite the school filing a lawsuit trying to get the federal government to stop its investigation into alleged violations of Title IX. The findings of the federal government was that SJSU did in fact violate Title IX. The school didn't investigate the alleged plot against Brooke Slusser to spike the ball to her face by the transgender individual and a female player on another team. The federal government said that they didn't investigate that thoroughly, in a non-biased way. And then they turned around and tried to punish the female athlete, Brooke Slusser, for even bringing up concerns about this male player, claiming that she misgendered. Rather than investigating threats against her safety, they turned around and tried to punish her for acknowledging that this person is indeed a male athlete. So on the 6th of March, a lawsuit was filed by SJSU, claiming that the findings of the federal government are unfounded and that they are simply supporting their LGBTQ students. Well, Secretary McMahon announced this yesterday, saying that protecting women's sports is non-negotiable. After we found SJSU in violation of Title IX, they refused to negotiate a resolution. SJSU, you have 10 days to cease your discriminatory practices. And this is what the notice that she posted said. So this was to the president of San Jose State University, Cynthia Teniente Matson. And it says, as you know, the U.S. Department of Education, Office for Civil Rights, issued a letter of findings of non-compliance with Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 in the above referenced investigation on January 28, 2026. The letter was accompanied by a proposed voluntary resolution agreement that specifies actions to remedy current and past discrimination and prevent future similar violative conduct. On February 3, 2026, the San Jose State University, herein after the recipient, acknowledged receipt of the letter of findings and proposed resolution agreement. On February 4, 2026, OCR encouraged the recipient to negotiate a resolution agreement and requested the recipient respond to the proposed resolution agreement by the close of business on March 6, 2026. What did they do? They turned around and filed a lawsuit for an injunction. On March 6, 2026, the recipient responded to OCR's letter of findings and proposed resolution agreement by indicating its disagreement with OCR's finding and requested that OCR rescind the letter of findings and close the investigation. Also on March 6, 2026, the president of San Jose State University issued a public notice, which stated in relevant part, as such, we informed OCR that the university cannot and will not agree to the terms of the proposed resolution agreement. Emphasis in original. Based on the recipient's proactive refusal to voluntarily negotiate resolution of OCR's concerns, OCR has determined that a voluntary agreement will not be reached, and we are at an impasse. OCR will issue a letter of impending enforcement action in 10 calendar days. If a resolution agreement is not reached within the 10-day period, enforcement action may include the initiation of an administrative process set forth in 20 U.S.C. 1681, 34 CFR, Parts 100, 101, 106, and 20 U.S.C. 1234, to suspend, terminate, or refuse to grant or to continue federal funding or other means authorized by law, including referral to Department of Justice. This letter does not constitute final agency action. So SJSU has 10 days to comply or it will lose its federal funding, or at least that's what's looming. If the school doesn't want to negotiate a resolution, doesn't want to abide by the resolution agreement, doesn't even want to show that it's willing to ensure that it's complying with Title IX, then it definitely risks losing its federal funding. So announcing that they were filing a lawsuit against the federal government, SJSU said the following: "We believe OCR's findings aren't grounded in the facts or the law." SJSU and the CSU filed a lawsuit today against the federal government to challenge those findings and prevent the federal government from taking punitive action against the university, including the potential withholding of critical federal funding. Well, the lawsuit clearly hasn't caused the government to back down. They are ramping up their fight to protect female athletes and to protect women's sports in our universities. And that is good news. So they have 10 days to comply. And this is an issue that continues to escalate. And this week, there was a board meeting, a CSU board meeting that fell into chaos amid this whole SJSU versus the Trump administration scandal. The California State University Systems Board of Trustees meeting Tuesday was shaken by a stampede of emotional residents and alumni reacting to a decision to sue the federal government. CSU and San Jose State University announced Friday they are filing a lawsuit to challenge the U.S. Department of Education's recent findings that SJSU violated Title IX in its handling of a transgender volleyball player from 2022 to 24. Tuesday's meeting turned into a war of words. Many speakers ignored instructions to address the board and instead addressed other speakers in the crowd.
Men posing as furries to females don't belong in women's sports or spaces at any university. You know it leads to more assaults and investigations. Drop the CSU San Jose's lawsuit and keep mentally ill, gender dysphoric males from harming women. As chair of Taxpayers Oversight for Parents and Students and a lesbian, please stop violating women's rights through Title IX. Otherwise, personal liability may follow under this current administration.
I'm Allison Foote, Treasurer for the Independent Council on Women's Sports. San Jose State's refusal to follow the OCR's resolution agreement and hold itself accountable to the women whose volleyball season was destroyed and consent was compromised is an embarrassment to the entire CSU system. The school, among other things, gave a man a full women's volleyball scholarship, concealed his sex from players and parents, put him in women's locker rooms and hotel rooms on road trips, and prompted 5 women's teams to forfeit. Yet CSU is actually suing the federal government, offering nothing but its full support to the male athlete. This is CSU-sanctioned sexual abuse of the women you are obligated to protect. Your internally inconsistent Title IX and DHR guidelines that prioritize gender identity over sex have created the hostile environment unfolding before you now, but most importantly, for the 260,000 women enrolled on your campuses. The adults in this room have failed all of them.
So the school is refusing to acknowledge that this is abusive, forcing girls to compete against boys, forcing girls to be in changing rooms with boys. We heard what happened to Brooke Slosser. They didn't even inform these female athletes that they were going to be sharing accommodation with a male athlete. They never confirmed to the female athletes that this person was male. So of course, naturally, you will let your guard down when you think that you are interacting with another woman. They never gave these female athletes the opportunity to consent. Consent doesn't matter to SJSU. The one male athlete, to them, is worth the loss of federal funding, is worth the abusive practices towards female athletes. The male athlete and his gender identity is more important than the very consent of the female athletes. And they are hiding behind LGBTQ rights when we have people who would be classed as being part of that community against this. Because it simply isn't right. Because it is fact that no man has ever become a woman in the history of mankind. So these are policies that are not rooted in reality. And the school continues to violate Title IX. The federal government has confirmed that this school has indeed violated Title IX and discriminated against its female students.
I'm here as a former student of San Jose State, and I'm so disappointed that Cal State is no longer welcome to women. I'm here to support Title IX and state a basic truth that many people are afraid to say: males cannot become females. Everyone understands this in sports. Even Serena Williams has said that men's and women's tennis are essentially different sports because of the physical differences between men and women.
The CSU system has a chance to show real leadership by defending what Title IX truly stands for. Equality is not achieved by erasing the boundaries that protect women. It's achieved by upholding them with clarity and conviction. Protecting women's rights is not exclusionary. It is justice, and it is the very reason that Title IX exists. Thank you.
CSU is suing the federal government rather than retain federal funding by complying with Title IX as passed in 1972 and protecting women's sex-based rights. California adopted a definition of sex that includes gender identity, but the federal government has not, and that is why CSU will lose. California's government can't change reality by redefining what words mean. It may force people to comply with lies, but like all totalitarian mind-controlled dictates, this will fail. Stop risking CSU's federal funding in a hopeless quest to litigate away reality, all to cheat and harm women.
Wow. Excellent point there. SJSU is hiding behind California state law. Your law is not rooted in reality. Your law doesn't protect women. Your state law, puts women in harm's way. That's why, yes, they will absolutely lose. Because thankfully, at least the federal government is not on board with putting women in harm's way, is not on board with pushing this fantastical ideology that a man can become a woman. Thankfully, the federal government acknowledges biological sex, and that trumps gender identity. A man's fantasy of living as a woman cannot come before the rights of females, cannot come before the safety of females, cannot come at the expense of women's sports. And there is no way you can claim to be complicit with Title IX when you allow male athletes to trample all over women's sports, when you allow male athletes to endanger female athletes on the court.
I do not support the use of my state tax dollars by the CSU Board of Trustees or San Jose State University in the recent lawsuit. I urged both institutions to adopt the biology-based definitions of male and female that were in place when Title IX was originally enacted.
And here we're going to hear from the trans activist who is upset that she has to spend her time saying that trans women are women. And I agree that it is a waste of time to be pushing something that simply is a lie, to be pushing something that isn't rooted in reality. Your time would be better spent on the basis of fact, on the basis of biology.
First, I am disgusted and disappointed in the bigotry and homophobia that has been expressed in this room today.
And I am absolutely disgusted with the misogyny that is being expressed right now. Telling women that they have no right to object to competing against men, that they have no right to object to sharing a locker room with a man, an accommodation with a man, and being tricked into sharing a bed with a man. How misogynistic to say that women have no right to object to that, or have no right to be uncomfortable with that, or have no right to demand their own sports.
This is precisely why we need to continue to fund the classroom and not the boardroom. I am truly disheartened by the hate reflected in some of our graduates and folks here today.
I'm frustrated that I'm going to have to use my time today to talk about transphobia instead of the cuts that are impacting our students and our faculty every day, as was prepared. So first, it seems like there's a bit of a misunderstanding that a lot of the folks calling in have about the difference between sex and gender. Spoiler alert, both are socially constructed. Sex is a classification system used to reproduce social inequalities based on perceived biological characteristics characteristics. Male and female are binaries on a spectrum in which about 1 in every 1,500 babies born in the United States does not fall on. And the idea that I have to get up here and say that trans women are women and that's what I have to use my time to do is absurd. Shame on you. Shame on all of you. And shame on you for using lesbian politics as a front for your transphobia, because this lesbian has had plenty of girlfriends with penises.
So there we have it. We have the rational, calm, rooted in reality testimonies urging the school not to be reckless with its federal funding. And then we have the activists who get up there clearly thinking they have some moral high ground, talking down to everybody, and then coming up with the absurd claim that men can be women. These same people use the manipulative, dishonest tactic of using DSD to push their lie as well, that some people are born both sexes, which simply isn't true. Being born with abnormalities doesn't mean that you're born both sexes. You are still either male or female. And then to say that our concerns for the safety and well-being of female athletes is bigotry is just another way of trying to demonize women who stand up for themselves, young women who say that I have a right to my own sports. Title IX affords me that right. That is simply acknowledging fact. So let me know what you think. Do you think SJSU is going to comply, or do you think the school is going to end up losing its federal funding? And why do you think the school is doubling down more and more? And what is it going to take for this school to finally protect its female students? To finally acknowledge that the female students deserve their own sports? So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.